to the Amazon, Akiko. Welcome.
Wow.
With and on the team is Inge Mette, who does many things for climate action, and myself, Rob de Laet.
Yes.
And she has actually brought some of her plants to show already a little bit of an Amazon touch. But first, I'd like to play a 1-minute video of the place where I normally am in Brazil. That's the valley, which I'm trying to rewild. And maybe you can play that, Inga?
Yes.
Hello, Kirsi, welcome. So this was our rainforest before. You can see where the limits are, where it's cut. And this is actually not in the Amazon, it's in the coastal rainforest of Brazil. And I live here, and I'm making it, trying to make it green again. And in the end, you'll see my house on the left side. And you can also, it's quite a big house, so you can see that it's quite a big area. And I'm very fortunate to live there together with a few other people. And that's where I normally operate from. Kirsi, it's so nice to see you, and what a lovely smile. And you have good internet. Wow. Welcome. So let me then start my little talk about the Amazon and why the Amazon is crucial for the future of all of us. I think you have many times you've heard that the Amazon is the lungs of the earth, but in a sense it's actually more the heart of the earth, because the waters that it pumps through its rivers and through its flying rivers are so powerful that they rain the climate all over South America, and even they moisture parts of the United States. But maybe I shouldn't say too much, because then later on I'm going to do my presentation and I'm going to repeat myself, but we will see that actually the intelligence, the intelligence of the Amazon is maybe the most important thing we should concentrate on. Inga, can you play the next video, which is just a show of the fierce resistance and beauty of the people of the Amazon, who after 500 years of...
Yeah. Is this the Kunume?
Yes, of colonization, have not given up on a culture that's much stronger maybe than ours.
So this is the Kunume video.
Yes, please. Can you play that?
Absolutely.
Em 2019, voltamos ao passado. Invadiram nossas terras e o meu povo assassinado. Queimaram crianças e o medo instaurado. Nossos direitos revogados. E diante disso, eu vejo o mundo calado.
Thank you for watching that. The people of the Amazon are part of the Amazon. They are part of nature. Their nature lives in them. They live in nature. They talk to the rivers. They talk to Mother Earth. They talk to the trees. They talk to the mountains. And they listen to them. And for us, it's very difficult to understand in our Western mindset. But actually, the message that they bring is profound, is deeper than the one that we are able to understand right now. And yet, I think that the solutions for the crisis on Earth actually lies in that forest, in their voices. And but first, we're going to get a little bit less, let's say, spiritual. I would like you to see the situation on the ground in a part of the Amazon that's one of the last parts in that area. It's on the east side in the state of Maranhão, where a tract of about 4,000 square kilometers is under heavy attack and is now on all sides. It has been deforested. And my dear recently connected brother, Ronildo Fly Guajajara, made a documentary, and it's 13 minutes, about the situation they encountered there. They still encountered there. I haven't talked to him for a few days because he's in the forest and then he has no connection to the outside world. So Inga, can you play that video?
Okay.
Essa é a nossa terra, terra de Araribóia. Nela vive meu povo, os Tenterrara, também conhecido como os Guajajara. Essa terra também é do povo Alaguajá, os isolados. Há muito tempo, a nossa terra vem sendo invadida por caçadores, narcotraficantes, poceiros e madeireiros.
Olha o contato que tem. São muitas quantidades de sacos. Parte de manhã que fizeram a ração, aí amanhã eles vêm pegar aqui, ou hoje de tarde ou à noite, que eles pegam.
A história da Araribóia
é uma história de exploração ambiental, né? De violência ambiental e de violência contra as comunidades Guajajara que vivem lá também, que sempre foram levadas a reboque em vários ciclos diferentes, né, de exploração, e que eram tirados deles tudo que eles tinham, madeira, jaborandi, né? E os isolados se encontram muitas vezes em lugares onde tem violência direta contra eles, porque são as únicas áreas da terra que sobrou.
No início era uma grande floresta e a gente andava livre dentro dela. E aí construíram uma estrada, depois outra, e depois mais uma. Por último veio a ferrovia, que dividia o território e as nossas famílias.
É uma terra indígena extremamente ameaçada, extremamente vulnerável, com uma população de contato antigo, que são os Guajajara, que estão segurando sozinho aquela bronca, basicamente. E os Guajajara estão numa situação que é tão complicada que eles têm que pensar neles e nos parentes que estão no mato, literalmente sem cachorro, né? Não tem para onde correr.
Queimou aldeias, já queimou casas e agora ameaçando a vida dos Auaguajá que vive aqui no coração da mata. E aí pra gente é muito doído de olhar assim, tudo se acabar e a gente sem poder fazer muita coisa.
O Estado brasileiro não estava cumprindo com seu dever de proteger o nosso território. Então decidimos criar os Guardiões da Floresta.
Aqui era cheio de madeira, aqui era área de madeira. E nós tomamos posse da nossa localidade e também da localidade dos índios mais vulneráveis do mundo, que são os Auaguajá. Que também os nossos avós brigaram por isso aqui, para estar nós hoje aqui e os isolados. Aqui, ó, esses pastados aqui não foi Guajajara que plantou esse capim aqui, não. Isso aqui foi os não indígenas que já estavam ocupando aqui até para lá da Lagoa Comprida, até lá na aldeia Cabeceira. Já estava tudo loteado, entendeu? É só para o pessoal vir e se apossar. Não vamos deixar a invasão tomar de posse da nossa casa, do nosso território, né? Porque não há outro território para nós sair daqui.
Os anciões sempre diziam que tinha outro povo morando nessa terra. A gente chama eles de Wazazara. Parece que são entre 40 e 60 pessoas, mas ninguém sabe muita coisa sobre eles. A gente sabe que eles vivem em pequenos grupos e que tiram da floresta tudo o que precisam para viver. A gente sempre respeitou a vontade deles de não se aproximar. Teve um dia que a gente saiu para caçar para a festa da menina moça. Galera, agora é o Zawabo. Esse Zawá aqui da pente na Loriboia. Nós vamos enguajar a tua. Enguajar para o já já encosta a tua. O marinho de recua meu. Mas eu vou que ser o diabelo tua. Mas ele não é bolsa. Corbiona pé corbia. Aí eles conversaram. Eles ouviram. Estou aqui perto dos barracos deles, acampando bem aqui próximo da gente. A gente veio aqui, fazendo uma caçada e tudo mais. Os turistas já estavam aqui fazendo sua caçada e eu já estava acampado aqui nesse local.
É uma sobrevida que esses isolados estão vivendo hoje, né? Então, a fome, a sede, a tristeza, a falta de parente, a falta de cônjuges, a necessidade, por exemplo, de calar as crianças, de fazer com que as crianças não chorem, porque o grito das crianças pode alertar pessoas que possam estar lá para matar eles. E essa ideia de gente que está lá para matar eles é algo recorrente na história dos Guajá. Que na época da ditadura militar isso foi feito de galão, e esse boom dos Auá se dispersarem em dezenas, centenas de grupinhos, se dá sobretudo nessa época, dos anos 60, dos anos 70, que tinha essa política de extermínio.
Pessoal, aqui é o acampamento deles aqui, ó. Eles já estão vindo pra cá, eu tô com medo aqui. Eles estão voltando pra cá. Eu deixei ele me ver para que a gente levasse a imagem um do outro. Será que a gente vai se ver novamente?
Essas pessoas que estão aí, que agora foi capturado muito de perto a sua imagem, né? Eles se assustaram com essa aproximação e demonstra o tamanho da ameaça, né, e da vulnerabilidade que eles estão passando. Como é que tem gente que tem coragem de dizer que os indígenas hoje estão preparados para viver sem a sua casa, sem o seu território. Né? Aqui, o povo Auá, que está no território indígena Araribóia, que está também na terra indígena Auá, na terra indígena Caru, que está também no território indígena Alto Turiaçu, né? E eles estão deambulando pela mata e precisa desse território livre, protegido, para que eles possam continuar existindo.
Eu acho que os Auaguajá, mais do que nunca, vão depender de nós, vão precisar de nós, né, para nós defender a terra, para nós defender essa mata. É dela que não vem as frutas, vem a água, vem as caças, vem tudo. Né? E se não tiver isso aí, né, acabou a nossas vidas, acabou tudo para nós. Enquanto existir mata, enquanto nós existir também, para lutar também, para proteger isso aí, eles vão ficar aí por o resto da vida deles também.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
Welcome. I hope you liked that video. So my friend and brother Ronildo Fly Guajajara is actually now in the forest. 6 of his companions have been killed by loggers in the last 2 or 3 years. And the woman that you saw speaking, Sonia Guajajara, she is one of the leaders of the resistance against Bolsonaro government. And she's actually is being prosecuted by them at the moment. So the situation is extremely dire for these people. And you just saw a few of the last humans on this earth who are still not in contact with the Western society. Not because, Francois, so nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Okay, you missed a couple of beautiful videos. Actually, now you just have to do with my voice and my presentation, basically. But I will send you the links, both of you, later. So you saw just one of the last few people on this earth who they know our society is out there and that is getting closer and closer to them. They do not want it. And that brings me basically to my presentation, why I want to explain why the Amazon is not only crucial for the future of generations. I think also, in a sense, the intelligence of what is there, and I can't say it's the people or the forest or the rivers, I think it's the whole biome as an intelligence that may help us to get through this crisis. And basically, I can already tell what I think that we all should be doing. We should all become indigenous again. But anyway, let me just go to the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that I have. I have a very short one. Usually I have a longer one. Inge, will you play it, or do you want me to play it?
You can try to play it yourself.
Okay, let me see.
I have it ready for you in any case, but yeah.
Let me see. I first have to put it on the screen, of course. One minute.
I'm here to assist you. Here it is.
Yeah, okay. Let me first put it on the screen. Why doesn't it go full? Is this full?
Can you
There
see?
we go. Oh, you're doing it, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So the presentation, as you can see, is called The Great Turning for the Amazon. The time has come. I could have said, but it's a little tricky because people maybe want to lock me up. I could say The Great Turning by the Amazon. The time has come. Can you do the next slide, please? Okay, first I want you to meet two of the creatures I love most in my life. First, on the right-hand side is the jaguar. Actually, it's very funny, but since I was 5, the jaguar has always played a role in my life, as if I'm accompanied by this animal. And I could tell you many stories, but I'll leave it at that for now. And the other one is Derek. Derek is a typical example of the monstrous inequality of the Brazilian society. He was born as the 4th child of a 17-year-old mother, born by somebody from the street, a young guy I know who was living on the street, and they took him in, and so the two had they made love, and he left again. And when Derek was about less than a year old, there was a knock on the door on the Dia das Crianças, the Day of the Children, and the mother, his grandmother, basically came and brought him and said, "My daughter cannot raise 4. Here is your kid. Go raise it." That time they were living in the Cidade de Deus. It's called the City of God, the most dangerous favela of Rio. And anyway, so I'm in daily contact with them, and as far as I'm concerned, I will try to protect his life. He's a beautiful little kid. Thank you, Inger. Can you show the next one? This is my brother, Haru Kuntanawa. He is the chief of the Kuntanawa tribe in Acre, in the west side of Brazil. And basically the plan I am developing for the Amazon, I do under his guidance. It's not that we talk a lot. Actually, he was married to an American doctor, and she is a psychologist and a plant medicine expert. But they rarely talk because they seem to be communicating without talk. But Haru is a very strong person, and he is protecting a part of the Amazon. Can you show me the next slide, please? Okay, now we go back to the big picture. We all know, those who are here, that we are in big trouble. We are in an unprecedented planetary crisis, and we call it the climate change crisis, the crisis of biodiversity. But actually, it's sort of it's a whole cluster of crises, which you could define them anywhere from mental to water crises to soil crises. Basically, our whole way of life is in crisis and is being threatened by the way we do things. There is lack of awareness, especially in the Western world, how deep this crisis is and how much we need to change in order to get ourselves out of this mess. And I think it's a very urgent crisis. I think if we do not make great strides this decade to turn around the situation in our consciousness and out there, it's going to be difficult. Next slide, please. In 2019, an article came out with some of the most important climate scientists, and they showed us that 9 of the most important planetary climate elements of our planet were on the move. And you have read of all of these. They are anywhere from the permafrost thawing to the great ice sheets melting much faster than we thought, to the boreal forests burning down, the coral reefs dying off, the Atlantic ocean circulation slowing down, which actually both increases the level of water on the east coast of the United States and brings colder weather, especially in winter in parts of Europe. And then, of course, the Amazon forest. The Amazon forest is by itself large enough to influence the whole climate system of the world. Next slide, please. So these are stories you all know. Again, in 2020, the world destroyed again more forests than before. We had a few years that it was a little bit less, but again, it's on the move. And we must realize that cutting so much forest will increase the speed of the climate crisis. And also there are tipping points there, which I will talk about specifically about the Amazon. Next slide, please. So you just saw these 9 tipping points, and the only tipping point in that system that we could actively and directly influence by simply reforesting is the Amazon forest. And it's amazing that for millennia, people have lived there, and it is portrayed in the West as a sort of a large natural habitat with a few people in it, but actually you could more see it as a rich biodiverse area, which has been maintained by the Indians. And I think that the great transformation that we as humanity need to do right now is both, of course, integrate the modern science. We have done a lot of amazing things developing modern science and knowledge, but integrate it with the deep knowledge and science that the indigenous people have. And I think that if we get do our cards right, we play our cards right, we can actually start what is called a bioeconomy, an economy based on the living forests in the Amazon, which would provide much better lives to all the people that live there, about 35 million people, than the current extractive economy that is killing everything. So the Amazon would also be a pilot project for the world to show that an ecological civilization is possible. Next slide, please. So let's get back a little bit to the Amazon forest, and it exists because it keeps itself alive. It is 65 million years or so old. It started basically after the extinction of the dinosaurs, possibly because these huge animals, when they disappeared, they left the space open for large trees to fill up the space. And it's not the oldest forest in the world, but almost the oldest forest in the world, and has been shrinking and going bigger, but on the whole, it has been a biome evolving for 65 million years. Inge, can we have the next one? So, and it's this huge biome is very efficient in recycling both water and nutrients. The nutrients in the soils are actually the soils on which the Amazon forests live are usually pretty poor of nutrients. A lot of it is sand, but this amazing forest, the largest, the most biodiverse place on Earth, has actually evolved and has found ways of living on these poor soils by recycling its nutrients and by recycling water. Because the Amazon basically draws in water from the Atlantic Ocean by creating low pressure centers, and this water gets recycled in the forms of rains, and then the 400 billion trees that are there re-evaporate that water into the air, and that's how they rain upon itself. And part of that, which is called the flying rivers, flows off to the south and the southeast, irrigating most of Brazil and all the way to Argentina, which is 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers south of the forest. In the last few thousand years, roughly 12,000 years or 10,000 years, nobody knows exactly, people have been living there in small gatherings, but in quite large numbers. The latest estimates are anywhere between 5 and 10 million have been living there, and they have been enriching the forest with their knowledge, with seeding plants and doing all kinds of stuff, and have an intimate knowledge of all the properties of the plants and the animals in the forest. Next slide, please. So here's a quick picture of what's going on. The red area is forest that was already taken out as of 2018, and right now it's going up. You see, it's especially on the south side and on the west side where the deforestation is going. If you see above the word Maranhão on the right side, above there's a little green spot, and that is where the documentary was taken you just saw. So about 20% of the Amazon forest is now has been cut, and what you see is that the biotic pump, that water pump that is re-irrigating, is slowly faltering, and we have more and more droughts. Next one, please. And scientists have made it very clear that we are already at a tipping point where the forests, the weather system that is created by the forest could stop. It could simply start. There would be a vicious cycle of droughts, which would kill trees, which then would go up in flames, which would kill more trees, which would make the system weaker. And then in 3 to 6 decades, most of the forest could disappear. And if that would happen, it would mean that not only would South America as a food production area basically be basically would be degraded to such a point that there would be huge famines, not only in South America, but also around the world, because the world, it's one of the food baskets of the world, but also over Western United States, because it is, they think that if large parts of the Amazon would die down, the precipitation over California and other states in that area would go down by about 15%. So a dying Amazon would bring a huge food crisis to the world. The second thing that would happen is that it would happen through mega fires, the size we haven't seen yet. And once that happens, so much CO2 would go into the air that we can forget to have any chance of reaching the Paris goals of keeping maximum global temperatures to 2 degrees centigrade as a maximum, which is already dangerous. Thank you, Inge. Can you change slides? So the question is, can we avoid this Amazon tipping point? And the answer is probably yes, if the world comes together to decide to protect it and reforest an area roughly the size of Germany or California, that kind of size, within a decade, which would mean planting something of 80 billion trees. Probably half could be done by nature, because nature is pretty good at it. There are various techniques to do it. Next, please. But then the most exciting part actually comes because it is the most biodiverse place in the world, and we have only just touched a little bit on all the properties of the plants and that are there. And the Amazon people, there's still, the knowledge is still there to understand what can be done by it. By the way, you see the guy with the huge feathers is my friend Haru, but now in a full ornate for a ceremony. To give you an example, I heard that kids from the Quechua tribe in Ecuador can distinguish 250 types of bees, which each give honey with different properties. Another one that I can tell you about is that there are stories that the indigenous people would gather early morning dew to give to their kids against as vaccination against diseases. I could explain more of that later on, but I'll keep it at that for now. Can you change the slides, please? So basically, the message that they give us from the Amazon is that we need to listen to them and we need to understand their story better. They actually think that our society of destruction is primitive, and they know how to make sure that we can live as a human species in sync with nature. This is a picture from that earlier clip we saw today, and this Indian boy is in Sao Paulo discovering the mess we made there with these big cities. Next one, please. So to just give you an idea, you know a couple of these things. You probably know acai, maybe you've heard of guarana, you certainly have heard of chocolate. And but there are more than 3,000 edible fruits, leaves, roots and nuts, and even more medical plants and substances that you can find over there. And if we, instead of cutting it down, would start to investigate what are the properties of all these plants, that would bring huge benefits to humanity as a total. Next slide, please. Okay, here's just one of the examples of the thousands of possibilities that can come from studying the biodiversity together with the indigenous peoples. You probably know that they have developed materials that are some of the strongest and more flexible in the world by simply looking at spiders, how they make their webs. So all kinds of forms of biomimicry are extremely important for the future, what we call the fourth industrial revolution. Next slide, please. I just leave this in for as some of the things that could be developed from the forest. Drugs to slow or reverse aging. So I was just talking about natural vaccines that could actually be harvested just outside your door. Create new biomaterials. One of the most important things that we could probably learn from the Amazon. We're very used to, if we cut ourselves with a knife when in the kitchen, we know that our body heals, and self-healing materials are probably one of the possibilities that we can find by studying much more what's going on in this huge biodiverse area. Next one, please. So, okay, what is exactly the importance? First of all, we, humanity, cannot afford to lose the Amazon, because it would plunge our world in a crisis of food, scarcity, which would mean hunger and war. And the second one would be that climate catastrophe will even gear up faster. At the same time, if we come together as humanity and reforest the area to its original size by planting roughly 80 billion trees, the Amazon would actually start cooling the planet in two ways. First of all, the biopump would become stronger again, so that more water would be also would be pushed to the south, to Brazil, to Uruguay, to Paraguay, to parts of Bolivia and Argentina, which would actually help increase food production. And secondly, we would sequester so much carbon by regenerating the forest that it would help us a lot to counter the climate crisis. So I'm asking you to understand the importance of the Amazon, not just for the climate crisis, but also that it has properties and people who know, who are actually reaching out to the world with their story, that they can help humanity getting us out of the mess we're in. I think that's the last slide. We get one more slide, I think. Yeah, this is a simple thank you for listening from these three lovely girls in the forest. Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Pleasure.
It's exciting.
Maybe we can all unmute. We're with few, so I don't think we need to go up in groups. I would just like people to say what's on their mind. So Kirsi and Akiko and Francois, can you unmute, please?
I can start just because I'm kind of burning with fury. I have 7 siblings, and right now in our text string is I'm watching this incredibly powerful and sobering program. They're all going back and forth and back on which horse they're going to bet on in the Derby, and so CEO put $500,000 on horse number 80 or 80. And, you know, he's the owner of a mattress company, and he's going to give all his customers free mattresses if his horse wins. And it's so insane. It's so ludicrous that as I sit here watching this, you know, beautiful program that you've put on, I have my own family members are so freaking lacking in awareness and being awake and disconnected and numbing out with entertainment, and it just makes me want to cry.
Wow, Jennifer, I wish I could embrace you now. Yeah, I am.
We've got a lot of education to do.
Please don't be angry at them. You know that this disconnectedness is part of the system that is actually killing us. It is disconnection. Basically, that's the biggest problem we have. You know it, and I know it.
Yeah, I know.
I can, yes, absolutely. I can see that the Kirsi from Finland and from India was posting that the message should come up to UN. The message of to reconnect and rewilding, that is actually the theme for United Nations celebration of 5th of June.
Okay.
Good.
So the rewilding, as you said, Rob, that we all should be closer to nature, that we all should like leave our mobile phone and go out in nature. I should too. It's it's the message. Maybe we can bring that forward, as Kirsi is saying, that we can repeat and get more. But and also, I also had an idea that they are working with Zimbabwe, Rob, as we do with the World Climate School, and to really to get like they also working on medicine from nature in Southern Africa. But in Zimbabwe, have you ever heard about the indigenous tribe in Zimbabwe? No, but there are. So there is like the label of indigenous is not existing in the African continent in the same way as in defined indigenous tribes. So to really open up a channel of communication, Rob, that you take one product at a time and to see that this is a business opportunity, and this is what they also have in Africa, and and to kind of learning and sharing on a new level, that you're really talking about the bioeconomy in a new way, and to really, based on your experience from the Amazon, really to shape those square boxes around defined products. And also I wanted to ask you, since you've been working with tourism, this thing about eco and eco travels, and agriculture, medicine, health, is there a lot of things going on in the Amazon on that level, like your beautiful resort? It's just a marvelous place you have there.
There are actually a lot of ecotourism hideouts in the Amazon, and but I think that almost none of them, probably none of them, really live up to what they should be, because right now it's all the rage to go to indigenous villages and take ayahuasca, which is basically, I mean, one of the, we are already indigenizing in a sense in the Western culture, because all the drugs that we're using, anywhere from tobacco to cocaine and stuff like that, when taken out of context of the sacred of this, they become destructive. And these people have always been using these drugs as a way to connect, in a way to see, to have a better vision of the total of reality and the connectedness of all phenomena and all living beings. So again, this tourism is quite often is still too much about separation. If you really should do it, you would have to ask them and be invited to and stay with them for a while until you really understand the synchronicity they're living in. And also, I mean, we have such a, okay, we all need to go on holiday because otherwise are crazy. So apparently we're doing something wrong the rest of the time. And these people live in the ones that are still able to do so, mind you, because they're all extremely under pressure. But basically they live in a constant, in a world of discovery, of beauty, of dancing, of singing, of connecting to animals and to trees and to rivers, of being replenished by living water, because water is living, air is living. They talk to stones and stones talk back to them. They are in an amazing world, and we only use that for kids up to 5 years old, and then afterwards they have to shape up and say, okay, now that fun was over, but stop believing this bullshit. Now we're going to get serious about stuff. So basically, from the age of 5, we are being tamed into this system, which is so unnecessary and so impoverishing compared to what is possible. And I think the solution is rewilding, connecting this indigenousness, if that's a word, with all our properties. I mean, the way how we are talking now together everywhere in the world on this Zoom is marvelous as well. And of course, what it means together is that actually our planet is getting self-conscious, kicked by the mess we're making and the pain we are inflicting, and at the same time, it holds this huge possibility which for us humans would mean we would come again into a world of connectedness and of synchronicity, of needing much less energy to get things organized, because it would be so natural to care and share. So we have such a learning journey to go. Sorry, I'll stop here.
Another question coming, like a big question to the possible ecological civilization era. One thing I'm seeing this wild human beings without clothes, right? So we kind of the mysterious, wild, savage stereotype of in a colonial mind of us, like there are some wild people in the forest, right? On the other side, I'm seeing these beautiful young people with this with the feathers and the music and the dancing. They're going into the urban technology world as well, and they and then I have this kind of ancient mythology of the Amazonas and the Incas, and that there has been some kind of a wisdom civilization before. So I'm wondering, like from your dream or from your vision, do you see that there is like kind of a building up to a beautiful civilization inside the Amazonas, or is it just like harsh and tough realities of brutality and a raw war going on in the Amazon?
It's a big question. The one of the most respected leaders is David Kopenawa Yanomami. And basically, you could, when you hear him talk, he says that they are holding up the sky, but they can't do it for much longer.
So he's saying that he's holding up the flying river sky of the planet, that he has this vision.
Yeah. So, and on the other hand, I mean, you just saw this 3-minute clip. You saw it for the first time, Ingrid. Actually, maybe if Akiko is fine with it, I would love to play it again, because I think it's such a beautiful example of what happened just last year, coming out of this fierce, beautiful warriorship that is actually still active there.
So that was the video of the film Angry?
Yes.
Okay. I will take it from the beginning, so it stop it.
Yes, please.
Okay, but you'll need to share the screen.
Yeah.
So.
Em 2019, voltamos ao passado. Invadiram nossas terras e o meu povo assassinado. Queimaram crianças e o medo instaurado. Nossos direitos revogados. E diante disso, eu vejo o mundo calado.
Thank you. And in a sense, I think we are already indigenizing in many ways. I mean, I think it has already started maybe in the 1930s of last century. I mean, where would we be as a society if we would not have had the beautiful music and that was and the strength of the Black people in the United States? They have given us such beauty. And the same thing goes, for instance, for Brazil. Carnival basically is the combination of the Indian and African spirits, two genocides that were committed there, and still it's flaring up. They're very strong, and the amount of beauty that comes out of it is enormous. But also one of the things that is I've been thinking about for a long time. What is it? About 20 years ago, suddenly everybody started to tattooing themselves, and it's in a sense it's the longing to become indigenous, which I think is sort of coming out. It's also, I mean, right now it's for me difficult to understand. But right now we're talking about multiple sexes and transgenders and cross-dressing, and what it goes a bit too fast for me. But in a sense, it's also about this diversity, and everybody's wants to present their own beautiful universe in what way or other. So I think both, and every time it's suppressed by our system, because if you do that, you're probably not going to be productive enough. And that system is now killing the web of life. Francois, I haven't heard anything from you, Laet. What are your insights, please?
Insights, I don't know of insights, but listening to your presentation and what you've shown reminded me of the novel I didn't write 40 years ago. Because what we're talking about here is not new.
No.
That's been, you know, when I was in my teens, we were talking about these things. Of course, they've evolved since, and they've just become worse. But there's nothing new. And I mean, the novel I never wrote was about because I wasn't brought up in an indigenous society, so I actually have no experience of indigenous society, and yet I had imagined it, and maybe in a previous life or maybe in a dream or something, and I had imagined that, and the messages that I wanted to write through the imagined indigenous were exactly the same messages that I'm hearing now from the actual indigenous people. So it is as if somewhere from a previous life or something, maybe I was in a, I don't know, but and
yeah, thank you.
I didn't write it is because I realized at some point that the gap between my message and where we were in the West was so enormous that there wouldn't be an audience they wouldn't, or it wouldn't be understood. And so instead I went traveling. I did all kinds of other things, but it's still a novel that maybe one day I will still write. But anyway, it's not about the novel. It's but it brings out all the feelings and the anger that Jennifer expressed that I had 40 years ago, about the way, especially because that's what I've come across again and again when I travel the world, how especially the white men have created so much destruction in this world. I mean, when I look at it from that perspective, I think the easiest thing would be just to get rid of the white race altogether. In one soup. That doesn't mean that it would solve all the problems, because it's not just exclusively white, but and
it's
as I can't remember who said, Jennifer said, I think there's such a huge gap in awareness, between what's going on and my life out in London, for example, where I am.
Inger, you said you wanted to say something? Yeah. I heard you say something. Or was it Akiko? No.
Well, maybe I said something, but I was really listening to Francois, but I want to say something, so you were reading my mind. Akiko, do you want to say something as well? I'd like to give you the opportunity to speak from the voice of Sweden and Japan as well.
For me, I mean, I have been very active about the GMO issues, soy farming, many years. And when I think about Amazon and deforestation, I always think about that, the funny kind of our strange food patterns we have created. Why we have to cut the trees there and cultivate the soya in order to feed the animals for people to eat it. It's a really strange thing.
I can follow you on that thinking, Akiko, because I was also writing on my note, but I didn't want to say that, but you reminded me. I wanted to say that. I wrote in your presentation, Rob, you have the 9 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are for 2019, as you refer them to. So with the COVID, this last year, it's doing something to our eating habits and also to food security. So there is like two trends, is like food security and local food harvesting, right? And food security. So there is a disruption on the value chain of food, because I know that Norwegian fish farming and salmon farming is like insane, because or chicken as well. We are relying on soya import from the Brazil to feed our fish and our chicken, and then we are eating. You know, it's like it's a system. It's insane, and these people doing that kind of violence and insanity to feed chicken from the food from Brazil, cutting down trees, and then being the richest people in Norway is sick.
Yeah. Can you put the gallery view on again, please? Yes.
Do you want me to say that to the Norwegian authorities? No, but
yes,
I think it's coming. There is a trend that, as Akiko is saying, that there is a disruption in our food patterns and the system thinking. So by cutting the dependence on cutting of the trees in the Amazon for the big food system, the cartels or the food systems on the planet, it's the only way forward.
Oh yes, but you know what? But you can approach this problem from any angle. I love the phrase that Joanna Macy uses, says that basically as a Shambhala warrior, you have two weapons. One is compassion, which we all understand. And then she says, but you would burn out if you only had that one, because too much compassion that kills somebody's energy. And the other one is the radical understanding, the understanding of the radical interconnectedness of all phenomena. And that's a sentence that we need to chew on a bit, but basically from any angle we approach our crisis, we come to the same conclusion, and that is disconnectedness. The way we deal with mental problems of people, and the salmon on our food, and the loneliness in houses, and the cutting of the forests are all part of the same phenomena.
It is. That's the spiritual disconnection to what we're doing in our life and being alive on the planet. Disconnection of life into life.
The most positive vision I could say is that mom, and I'm talking about Mother Earth, basically has dispatched a couple of us 12,000 years ago to go through this process of agriculture and everything, and technology. And so now we have this amazing global brain, the internet, for instance. And at the same time, now it's time to come back to the original being of connectedness, and together that creates a global society. And maybe it's mom calling us. In my case, I got a dream of a ceremony of all the indigenous leaders coming together to mourn the genocide, and then to heal. And basically the next morning I woke up and I had a job to do.
Yes.
Dreams are an essential part of the way in which I receive messages and guidance as well. And yeah, I support that and herald that and honor that. And especially in indigenous communities, dreams, dream work, dream interpretation, it's deep and powerful. And yeah.
Thanks.
We can have a whole dream session.
Yeah, but absolutely. But I Rob, do you think I should present that in fact the World Climate School?
Let's see if we can. I'll just watch the video and see if this came out well. So I think we should round off. If you want to have some last thing to say, otherwise we are rounding off. Francois, I still have to get in touch with you, I know, and I'd love to. I think there's things that you know that I really need to know.
All right. Yeah, no, we've been in touch. I haven't responded to email, so I'll be in touch.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Inga, thank you very much. Oh, you want to say something, Inga?
Well, it's just like coming from the Nordic, I think what's happening with for example, up in Iceland with Björk, the artist, really using art, and also that we saw that from the young people in the Amazon was using the art to express themselves. I think that's a huge and beautiful force, and that is part of the honoring the spiritual oneness. And I think I believe that the COVID has brought us to that understanding of Gaia as oneness, as behind your head. But not everybody has that. But you know, the health and wellness of us as breathing the air from the trees, from the atmosphere, from a being togetherness has changed our perspectives these years, I hope. So, but if you like, Rob, I could close this session with a speech from Björk from Iceland, where she's asking Europe to help her to protect land on Iceland, if you like.
If you have it ready.
I have it ready.
Jennifer and Kiko, you still have time? Yeah, okay, please.
Yes, and I prepared it as we spoke, because I think the thing that you mentioned on this about rituals. Yeah, okay, this is the World Climate School that we are part of, but this is the Gaia Fest, and the Gaia Fest, the fact that the theater, the revolutionary force is art. Bring back to the video that we had an introduction, Rob. And then this is the famous artist Björk from Iceland.
Yeah.
Icelanders have a deadline. For 11 more days, they can go online and protest an overhead high voltage power line that will be built across the whole island. Iceland has now the largest untouched nature in Europe. This would end that. The government has plans to build over 50 dams and power plants in this area and to start next year. This could end Iceland's wilderness in a few years. We propose to start a national park in our highlands. Surveys have already proved that the majority of Icelanders are behind us. We ask for the world to support us against our government.
So this is
Thank
the
you.
story of arts and how we can empower young people with music and arts, and also sharing stories, and to understand that it's similar situation all over the planet in many places.
Well, you know, I'd like to round off with one small thought about what is happening. We all know that in the 1960s, suddenly there was the flower power, the hippie thing happened. And suddenly all these funny rock and roll bands, they became famous. And actually, when they all went to India, to Rishikesh, to study with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, they came back with a message that basically opened up the world, the Western world, to flower power. So there was actually, it was triggered by a yogi in the Himalayas. And I think it was the dress rehearsal of what needs to happen now. And it's very contagious. I mean, we've seen how the world can change when there is a virus on this. But these forces of nature can become viral very quickly. And that is actually what I think we should stimulate and hope for, because it's high time that it happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for this historical lecture and Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akiko. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
Thank you, Inga, for your great support as always.